Environmental, and I'm excited to be facilitating today's conversation. For those of you who might be new to the community, the Environmental Peacebuilding Association is a global network of researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and community leaders who are all working together to better understand and strengthen the connections between environmental stewardship, cooperation, and peace. And the Young Professionals Interest Group was created to foster connections among emerging scholars and practitioners while creating a space for new ideas, diverse perspectives, and intergenerational learning. So today's roundtable hopes to bring that forward, and it's inspired by a kind of deceptively simple question: what does environmental peace building mean to you? And even though that might seem like a really straightforward question, um, we realize that the more we ask it, the more we see that the answers to that question depend on who is responding, where they're from, what experience they're bringing, and what challenges they are particularly trying to address. And that question feels more and more important today, given the context that we're in. We're living in a world that's becoming simultaneously warmer, more polarized, and geopolitically fragmented. Climate change, biodiversity loss, environmental degradation, and food and water security are all becoming increasingly connected with displacement and conflict. And these challenges cross borders, sectors, and generations. There's no single institution, government, or community or discipline that can address them each alone. And at the same time, the conditions for cooperation itself are becoming more and more difficult. Governments and institutions are facing competing priorities, economic pressures, and political tensions amid growing uncertainty. And the challenges we face require exactly the opposite of that. They require greater collaboration, stronger relationships, and more effective mechanisms for managing shared risks. Um, so this is where the field of environmental peace building, we think, has particular relevance. Um, Environmental peace building is often described as the process of preventing, mitigating, and resolving or recovering from conflict through sustainable management and natural resources in the environment. It recognizes the ways that we govern land, water, forests, minerals, and ecosystems, and how they can contribute to tensions and inequalities or create opportunities for cooperation, trust, and peaceful relationships. But beyond that, it also encompasses important questions like how do we build cooperation in a changing climate? How do we address environmental injustice alongside degradation? How do we recognize Indigenous knowledge, local stewardship, and community expertise? And how do we ensure that future generations have a voice in decisions that will shape the world that they inherit? Um, and that brings us to the conversation that we're having today. So, um, as the field of environmental peace building is growing in research and practice, there are still a lot of definitions and frameworks and conversations that are taking shape. And today we wanted to create room for a wider range of perspectives in those conversations, particularly those of young people and early career practitioners and community leaders. Our goal isn't necessarily to come up with a single definition for environmental peace building, but we want to explore the diversity of meanings, experiences, and aspirations that environmental peace building holds across different contexts and communities. And so, in that vein, I wanted to take a minute and share a word cloud. And I wanted to ask you all, when you think of environmental peace building, what is one word that comes to mind? So I'm going to share my screen, and if you um, follow the QR code, you can enter a word. So we see governance, cooperation, connection, complicated. There's a lot of things that kind of meet and go into these conversations. I'll give it another second, but also we can come back to this at the end and see if the words that we're thinking of change. Opportunity, participation. These are all really great. Livelihoods. So, in today's conversation, we're going to encourage everyone to engage, and we're going to encourage you all to do so with curiosity and openness and willingness to learn from each other. Um, as you listen and as you participate, we invite you to reflect on the following questions, which I also put in the chat. Um, so, what does environmental peace building mean to you? Um, what voices, experiences, and forms of knowledge are often missing or dominant in conversations about environmental peace building? How are you personally challenging, expanding, or reimagining existing approaches? What aspects of the field do you think need to evolve to respond to the particular challenges that the world is facing today? Um, what could you do? What could we do to be more inclusive and transformative in environmental peace building? And then lastly, we're going to come to a forward-looking question at the end, and we want to think about what would environmental peace building look like if it were defined by the realities and the aspirations of future generations. Um, the most valuable outcome of today's conversation might not be consensus again or coming to one definition, but we hope that like this opportunity to see the field through new perspectives will leave us all with better questions than the ones that we arrived with. Um, and to that end, I'm going to hand it over to Robin for some personal reflections before we dive into our conversation.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you everyone for joining the conversation today. I really like the words actually that were shared in the Menti, but I think it just um, it's a lot about what actually I want to to talk about and what I prepared for the conversation. So it's great to see that we are in sync. So first of all, I want to say that it's really an honor to be part of the conversation with the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. I think the association is doing a great job at bringing environmental peace building more into the spotlights. I think in the field or just among organizations, you can see that environmental peace building and youth peace security have more and more become topics of interest. You see more programs, you see more research done, and hopefully, in the natural order of things, we'll see more application of it to become a mainstream topic. And on that side, before it becomes a proper mainstream topic, I think one of the questions that you asked is essential, is what does environmental peace building actually mean? From different reflections, working in different environments, and having spoken to a lot of different people with diverse backgrounds, some working in Latin America, some working in the Middle East, some working in Asia. Uh, Everyone has a different understanding of what environmental peace building mean, and I think especially amongst young people. If we look at answers, a few years ago, I was running actually a survey on how the question was directed to organization led or mostly focused on youth. And the question was, how is your organization working on climate peace building? And we started to see, well, first of all, that no two organizations were doing the same thing. So that was an interesting challenge for us to analyze the data and come up with, let's say, broader categories. But also we saw some regional variety because environmental peace building might take a lot of different shape, let's say. It can be the struggle for ecological survival and adapting to climate breakdown. We can think of climate justice, for example, and indigenous rights. It can be the struggle for social justice, for livelihoods, creating a sustainable and durable economy in a place where youth has little to no job, and where jobs are affected by changing climate. It can be addressing inequalities that climate change is exacerbating, or more bluntly, if you focus on the security and peace building aspect, it can be the struggle for durable peace, for preventing violence, and transforming conditions that are creating those conflicts. So it really depends the approach, where you start, and your context. The idea of climate justice and indigenous rights is particularly important in contexts such as Peru or Colombia, for example. And it might be relegated, let's say, to second place in other contexts in the Middle East, where some other aspects might be more prominent. In West Africa, you will hear a lot of conversation around livelihood, around creating job opportunities that are respectful of the environment, or more essentially traditional jobs, traditional livelihoods that are being affected by climate change, and that actually young people cannot find a job anymore, need to find alternative way to to work. And all of those answers uh, were actually meant as a way of how is your organization working on environmental peace building. So it was actually great to see that everyone had a different understanding of what it is depending on their context. But one element, let's say, that is coming more often, it was never the center, let's say. It was never what people were actually aiming for, but it's something that came up all the time. It was the element of governance. Actually, I added the governance in the Mentimeter for that. And it was governance and let's say rewiring power to ensure that those most affected by environmental degradation and conflict, which are often the same people, are also the one that are not just benefiting from solutions, but that are designing solutions, that are leading them, and also are doing the assessments of what is the problem. Because this is something we'll come back to a bit later. But sometimes what we consider as a problem, let's say on a global scale, might not be that big of a struggle at a local scale. Um, if you take, for example, in Somalia, you have groups like Al-Shabaab that exploits droughts to recruit young people. And what environmental peace building could, let's say, take a form in this context would be restoring water canal through cross-clan youth team. So it's not only a question of securing water, it's also about rebuilding trust in between clan through youth participation. So having young people work together and actually young people recreating that that trust and that cooperation. In this context, the climate and environmental section is almost a an excuse to create some social cohesion. Uh, but in Tuvalu, for example, it takes completely different aspects. In this case, it's about legal action. It's about going to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice to hold states accountable for climate harm. Because in the sense you cannot have peace in if you have rising sea, rising ocean, destroying livelihood opportunities. But both examples of, let's say, restoring water canals and creating that social cohesion and going to the ICJ uh, are considered locally as environmental peace building, right? But they take such different shape. And at its core, I would say you would have those environmental peace building elements that are restorative, right? It's something that seeks to, let's say, heal fractures between it, that yeah heal fractures between people and the environment, creates social cohesion. Again, sometimes the climate is or the environment is almost an excuse. It's a platform for people to build trust and to build social cohesion. And the question that is often being asked is, so how do we answer those that harm? How do we answer those problem? And here it's how do we repair relationship with each other, and how do we thrive essentially together? But one question that can be asked, I think, from a more distant view, from a global view, from Environmental Peacebuilding Association, for example, perspective, is how can we best engage the most affected population to ensure that they own the solution? And one element that I wanted to talk about is actually a study that we're doing right now with my organization, with Action Against Hunger, that is not public yet. So it's you have it a bit beforehand, but it's going to be published very soon. It's about exploring environmental degradation and social cohesion in we're doing our study in the southeast of Mauritania, and we're taking a mixed approach uh, in our uh, in our analysis. What we're doing is we're taking GIS data, so geospatial data, to analyze drought patterns, to analyze accessibility of water, a lot of environmental factors, and we're looking at where are the problems, right? So that's one side of the equation. Then we're going to the village and actually asking people, is that a problem for you? Because sometimes we do realize that, okay, we would look at the data and we can be a bit scientific about it. I think a lot of people engaged in the topic are university educated. Some of us are scientists, and we're can be sometimes a bit blindsided by data and what we consider logical steps forward. But sometimes where we see the problem locally, it's actually not that big a problem because this is a traditional problem. It's always been there. I mean, in obviously climate change does exacerbate droughts, but droughts have been a problem, let's say a historical problem. So there are local ways of adaptation to those problems. So what we need to make sure is when we're looking for solutions, we need to make sure that we have the right problem, and that the way to make sure that we have the right problem is to actually engage people, and especially young people also, right from the very beginning of the assessment. So I would say that's our perspective perspective from the field. Um, I hope this answers some of your questions, Sophia.
Yeah, it definitely does. Now I think we wanted to turn to you all. And I don't know if everyone can see in the chat the questions or if they aren't visible to some of you who joined later, but I can put them up again. But I think under Part one, just to reiterate the questions we had, what does environmental peace building mean to you? Which voices, experiences, or forms of knowledge are often missing from dominant understandings of environmental peace building? How are you challenging or expanding existing approaches to environmental peace building? What aspects of the field need to evolve or respond to today's challenges? And what would a more inclusive and transformative environmental peace building practice look like? So you don't have to answer all of them, but if any of those speak to you, we definitely want to hear from you. I don't know if anyone wants to get us started with any thoughts.
Everybody else is shy. I can jump in, maybe.
Thank you,
Um,
Julian.
I think one thing that strikes me, and I'm not sure whether that specifically fits to one of the questions directly, Sophia, but I think just a bit of a reflection that I had while both of you were essentially bringing in your perspectives, and I think some of those answers from your own position. And I think Robin also just all of these examples that you just mentioned. Um, I find it interesting to think back to essentially where environmental peace building, at least how we understand it, more or less within the Environmental Peace Building Association, sort of where that came from. And I think especially amongst the people who have been with the association for longer, sort of in how far we might actually be stuck in a little bit of a kind of path dependency in our thinking, that still goes back to these initial notions of um, natural resource management and environmental action, essentially in post-conflict settings, as a way to sort of restore some of those relationships, repair some of those relationships, and build trust, but also build livelihoods, sort of rebuild livelihoods. Um, but I feel like sometimes we're still a little bit stuck in that notion, whereas there have been so many people coming into this space with all kinds of other ideas of what environmental peace building could be or should be. Um, and it's really interesting to see that diversity. And I think especially now that this whole notion of restorative justice has actually come up more and more, and I think we try to start an interest group on it at some point, maybe. Um, but I think that is such an important element to it. Um, Similar, anything that really looks more towards what is the relationship between essentially humans and nature. What are those relationships? And how do we find back to some of it? And I love how much we started, um, especially sort of the ECCP community sort of started working with art and integrating the visions of different cultures that go beyond. Robin, you said a lot of us are essentially academics or came from academia at some point, like just having all of these impressions that go beyond um, fancy reports and scientific papers, essentially, because I feel like that is where the actual environmental peace building is happening. Like it's not in the formal writing that is happening on it. It's in all of those very, very local actions that probably go completely underneath the radar because nobody knows necessarily what on earth environmental peace building is. Like it's a term that we artificially created at some point. And I feel like it's not so much about what it is, but sort of everything that we're missing. Um, and how to make sure that we bring back or bring in all of those kind of everyday practices essentially of environmental peace building that a lot of cultures, a lot of communities have been doing for generations. And so how do we actually connect to that? Um, and So maybe it's not so not necessarily just looking back at the questions, sort of what a more inclusive or transformative environmental peace building practice would look like. I think these already exist. It's just not necessarily a maybe inclusive and transformative environmental peace building association. Um, so of just making sure that we actually capture those in the way that we're thinking about environmental peace building.
I think that's a really great point that there are so many things that are already out there that we can learn from. And it's just a way of like finding them and recognizing them and um, ensuring that you integrate it into your best practices. I don't know if anyone else feels inspired to come in on these questions. If not, if any of you have questions for us or for the group, feel free to come in.
Maybe I see we have Morgan in the discussion. If you want to share some thoughts, maybe.
Hi, sorry, I'm commuting, so I don't know how well you can hear me. I'm very new to the field. I just got my master's degree, and I really came upon environmental peace building there. So I feel like I'm still learning a lot about a lot of the maybe the answers or the reflections to these questions. But something I think my interest kind of guided me into was the difference between sort of local governance ideas of environmental peace building and how to incorporate solutions that really include people, and some of the larger in the difference between that and sort of larger international governing bodies and how they respond to conflicts, and sort of the how to how to better manage some of those cookie cutter approaches that better incorporate people's. I think, like you were saying, what problem is really a problem? How are you addressing that in a way that really reflects people's needs, and not just seeing an issue and kind of going in with a team that doesn't understand the local context? So maybe this is more of a question than an answer to any of the questions, just as somebody who's very new to the field. But how I guess how do you see the work being done by practitioners and academics and people who are involved in environmental peace building being reflected on the international scale in those larger international bodies with like best practices, or trying to incorporate better forms of knowledge sharing or more inclusive forms of knowledge? And is there kind of has there been progress over time, I guess, in trying to support more of those, uh, you know, beneficial and inclusive and appropriate responses to conflict resolution through, environmental peace building lens? I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think on your question on how the like larger international bodies are dealing with this, I think the answer is, from my perspective, there's still room to grow. And I think it kind of depends on like which um, regime you're thinking of, and like even within the UN, kind of which bodies. But I know that I spend a lot of time looking at the UN climate regime under the UNFCCC, and environmental security and environmental peace building isn't necessarily um, like structurally embedded in those negotiations. There's no like formal negotiating work stream on it or recurring dialogue, but um, it does have an influence on the political level. And so then it does influence kind of negotiations and conversations at large. But I think when it comes to embedding these considerations and also um, ensuring that best practices get into the hands of decision makers at the broader international level, it's a question of like how do we build the political will so that the governments show up to these institutions and demand that. I don't know if that answers your question or if anyone else wants to come in on that.
It does. Thank you. I mean, I'd love to hear if anyone else has other thoughts, but thank you very much.
I mean, I think there is the element, especially Sophia, because you already mentioned COP, where at least the ECCP community, so there's this additional essentially community of practice that exists kind of in parallel, closely connected to the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and community around that. That has had very specific working groups for like how do we engage on sort of peace at COP, how do we engage on peace on the biodiversity COP, the desertification one. So really trying to put these topics on the agenda. But I think there is still so much to do just based on a lot of the roadblocks that civil society runs into at these um, platforms in general. And so I think that it's super important for us to keep that pressure up as much as possible. But I think there's probably also a lot of value to see in how far we can basically go the the second route, which is really try to get into targeted advocacy within individual countries, and ensure that we can actually push our own governments within our countries, especially those of us actually living in democracies, to put those topics more on the agenda. Because I think sort of the international civil society pressure is only going to go so far. At the end, we need a couple of countries to really take on a leadership role or sort of be those champions of those topics. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult to push them on a global agenda.
I would add that this year, I think there are several opportunities to like push for a kind of rethinking of how um, multilateral frameworks deal with environment and peace in general, because under the UN 80 initiative for UN reform, um, there's a lot of thinking and planning going into like how to make the United Nations more efficient, but also how to build synergies across um, the multilateral landscape. And then on environment, there is like a specific work program that is looking at all of the different multilateral environmental agreements and how to build synergies there. And then if you look deeper within each of those multilateral environmental agreements, there's a lot of negotiating tracks scheduled for this year about how to build synergies. Um, and so that can be an opportunity, I think, for people who are advocating for kind of more formal recognition of the intersection for environment and peace to kind of at least bring up their points and push for it to hopefully lead to something this year or in the future by building momentum.
Can I kind of in here on this with two thoughts and maybe questions related to what you just said? Is anyone or are you aware of the UN Youth Office looking into this nexus of climate, environment, and youth? Because they are supposed to basically be the umbrella for the UN institutions. And the other thing I was thinking, sorry that I don't have the camera on because my connection is really crap. um, are you familiar with the Youth Peace and Security Agenda?
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering, is there an overview or does anyone know how much environment and conflict is reflected across the NAPs that are being developed worldwide? And I mean, Europe is not really, the wider European region is not necessarily a front runner when it comes to YPS NAPs. But climate is also way more pressing an issue in Africa and Asia, for instance. So does anyone know anything about this? Is there someone looking into this? How much this is included in the YPS agenda and the NAP development?
Um, so as far as I know, I don't think there is a particular group looking at that because, as you know, the NAPs are being developed relatively independently by each kind of country organizations. Um, One thing is on the I think in November, there was a EU conference on youth peace and security that drafted a EU resolution for the YPS agenda, encouraging all member states to adopt a national action plan, which I think so far it's only Finland and Italy that's adopted. Italy, I think, adopted their national action plan last month or 2 months ago. So it's pretty recent. But the European Declaration did include that overlap um, with environment, with climate peace security. And actually, this was one of the main recommendation that came out of, I think it's a report from UNDP on that specific intersection on youth, climate, peace, security, um, to add this element on all the national action plans for YPS. That being said, as you said, Europe is not the front runner for a national action plan adoption, but the conference was, or the declaration is not only including European countries. It was an international declaration, just chaperoned uh, by um, by EU. So those were adopted by most of the leading organizations from, well, can't remember all the countries that were there, but the most prominent, of course, there was Nigeria that was present, and I think they're already working on the revision of the National Action Plan. I think it was Nigeria first, probably the first country that adopted. And Finland was also looking into adding these elements from discussions that I had, but I haven't seen anything official on that front. But it's definitely a big topic of conversation for the youth peace security agenda development.
Thanks for sharing this. That sounds like you were in Brussels for this event, right?
Yes, yes. Well, actually, I was on that panel for climate peace security as well. Know
Ah,
those elements.
perfect. Perfect. Cool. Were there no people from Poland or France? Because they are also in the process of pushing for an app, actually.
Well, of France, there was me. In Poland, I'm
Okay,
not
sorry.
sure. I haven't. I haven't. Well, it's a good thing if you did not notice the accent right away. So I'm happy for that.
You
But
could be Swiss also, so or Luxembourg, so.
fair enough. I was happy with no accent, but okay. The actually France launched the Women Peace Security and Youth Peace Security organization. So having the two together, the coalition, sorry, and the coalition is very new. So the coalition was launched, I think, right after the EU conference, so probably in December. So it's we're just getting the institutional knowledge right now, the networks. So it's still in the process. I wouldn't count on a national action plan in France in the coming month. If we're realistic, I think it's gonna take a couple of years at least. And for Poland, I'm not entirely sure.
Cool, but interesting. But I mean, you are still light years ahead of Germany then when it comes to the YPS
Yeah.
action plan on this.
Well, maybe that's something we need to also discussed with our German colleagues. So right now, we're definitely working with the Italians, so Italian coalition, because they just passed their national action plan, and the idea would be to have that. So to come back on the original topic for our conversation is to make sure to integrate. So in the French one, and thanks to the support of the Italian coalition for YPS, to be able to develop those NAPs, including elements for climate peace security, relatively more broadly. And to answer maybe the other question from Morgan, actually those kind of national action plans are important because those are setting the ambition, let's say, or the actions of governments for at least a few years. It has a bit of a longer term vision because when it comes to engaging governments, one of the elements, let's say, that we were facing, so I'm mostly familiar with European context for that, but one of the challenge that we're facing is also the change in governments and change in drastic change in some cases in focus or in policies. If we take the example of Sweden, for example, Sweden was part of the front runners, let's say, for women, peace and security, or for climate peace security, at a time when it was really a completely niche topic. And with changing governments, actually, those issues were less funded and maybe relegated to secondary or tertiary issues in some instances, which means, of course, a lot less funding, but less representation in international organizations as well. So engaging government is, of course, important because that's where you're going to get the funding. But it really has to be let's say, an international effort to make sure it does not depend on a couple of voluntary states, because those topics can be really, yeah, really forgotten sometimes. One interesting aspect is, no, not aspect, approach, sorry. One interesting approach is the approach of Canada for their gender equality and women peace security approach. One of the things that was done is creating a specific fund. It's a fund that is it's not regenerative. That's I don't have the economic terms. I have the environmental peace building terms. It's a fund that basically is sustainable. It sustains itself, so it generates its own money, and it does not require government input. And this is a way to ensure that these topics do not suffer from changing governments or changing political views, and that those funds can still have benefits and impacts in the very long term, even in economic hardships. But I feel like I've talked for a long time now, so I'll give the floor back to Sophia, maybe.
No, I think this has been a really great conversation. I actually have a question on the naps if we can spend another second on it, but I was wondering if there's any like transparency and reporting process. How do we know that they are working after a given amount of time?
I guess that depends on how they are designed, because that's sometimes also the problem, also with funding or who is involved, how top down it is. That's why it is really important to push really, or to include something like this that really allows for accountability and transparency.
That makes a lot of sense. I also wanted to bring in quickly, Angela put in the chat an answer to what environmental peace building means to her, and I think it's really great. So I'll read it out loud. Environmental peace building to me means including environment and peace building processes in order to guarantee um, non-reoccurrence of conflict. To this, I view environment as a person or a victim of conflict or abuse that deserves a voice in peace processes and justice mechanisms because people do not exist separately from the environment. Most peace processes focus on people and ignore the harms done to environment, um, which then leaves a platform for future conflict and provocation if the environment is not healed. Um,
That is actually super beautiful, and it reminds me of a course that I just did with KSEED on faith, climate, environment, and everything, where they looked into big bunch of religions, faith, beliefs, and also indigenous approaches to this. And it was also super interesting to see in which of these nature is actually considered basically a person in its own right, because that really depends or has an impact on how we approach protection and conservation and the whole thing. But yeah, it was an interesting course. I think it was a bit dry, but overall quite interesting. So I can definitely recommend looking into it if you're interested.
I would be interested. That sounds really great. Um, I think we can turn to our final question if anyone has any quick reactions, which is a future-looking question. Um, so what do you think environmental peace building would look like um, if it were defined by the realities and aspirations of future generations? Or a simpler question in that vein is, when it comes to environmental peace building, what gives you hope? I think something that gives me hope is the fact that there are young people who are willing to take the time out of their day to have these conversations and think deeply about what's going well and what needs to be changed for our future.
Yeah, definitely that. And I think in terms of approaches, way more sustainability driven, because yeah, we're basically wasting the future generations' resources and planet and foundation for living. So yeah.
For me, one element that Sophia very much goes with yours is the diversity of people that have really started to embrace this topic and embrace this community. Um, there's always going to be room for us to grow in terms of the structures that we actually have in place and how far those are really open. But I think a lot of the conversations that we have around it, sort of all of the informal spaces that don't need any formal governance or any structures, those have become so much more diverse and really started including so many really, really interesting local perspectives of what environmental peace building could be, or what it actually is, what it actually looks like on the ground, and then what we could learn from it. And so I think that there is just so much going on that has been redefining how we're thinking about environmental peace building, or like I hope how we're thinking about environmental peace building. Um, and hopefully that is going to continue.
Yeah, if I can maybe say one thing like what you're saying, Julian, is it really resonates because I think well, at least when I started working in environmental peace building, which is in the grand scheme of things not too long ago, but even in those few years, there has been such a huge difference. It happened to be a very niche topic. Let's say that you would have a few policymakers who would know about it. You would have some experts who would know about it. And now when you go to conferences or to meetings, or you're just working on a program, you have, well, first, most people actually somehow have heard of it, which is great. But also in the working environment, you have data analysts, you have policymakers still there, but you also have artists, you have farmers, you have climate justice activists, you have, yeah, it's such a wide diversity of specialty, and it's going not just from, okay, let's create a beautiful policy with saying what we need to do, but there's also activists doing things on the ground. There's humanitarian organizations. There's, I said, artists, or even having when you're in the middle of chat and you're going in a remote village and someone actually name drops environmental peace building. Like, okay, well, that the idea did progress quite a lot from Washington, or from, I mean, that's where it started, right? And that's actually people, or at least the words, probably again not the same definition everywhere, but the sheer fact that in all those contexts there is a connection between social cohesion and respecting the environment, or protecting the environment, or safeguarding the environment, is, I think it's a great step forward. And having, in that sense, actually having a unified definition might not be what we should be aiming for, but just having people making that connection is, it's already super encouraging, I think.
I like this idea of like it's not a specific term. It's sort of it's the overall mindset. I think that comes
Yeah.
with it. Um, and maybe it should just stay at that. Like I remember over the last few years, every now and then, and including with the glossary that is now coming out, it was always just like, oh, we need a proper definition of environmental peace building. And I think that's such a good point, Robin, to just make like, do we?
Yeah.
Is that even feasible? Maybe it isn't. Maybe we shouldn't.
Is anyone in the conversation want to share something?
Yeah, we have someone new joining us. Maybe he wants to chime in. Oh, wait, he's still there.
Hi, Henry. We were just talking about what gives us hope in environmental peace building.
I can see you're unmuted. I cannot hear you.
I feel like we have
Okay.
you joining and immediately throwing the deep philosophical questions at you. So good luck. We can hear you now, yes.
You can't hear me now? Great.
Yeah,
Um,
correct.
well, I guess reflecting a little bit on this question around can you define environmental peace building? We just had a dialogue on my campus in person at Oregon State, um, around this kind of new environmental peace building initiative that we're trying to start, really to gather a lot of people that I think are already doing this work, but operate in different kind of paradigms. A lot of kind of the work on our campus is operated from the conflict management or transformation kind of lens. Um, and so I think I find it hopeful and inspiring to see a lot of people that I think maybe didn't see themselves in that kind of conflict or cooperation paradigm, kind of coming into the conversation. And I think at least for now, the expansiveness and kind of abstractness of what is environmental peace building, I think is a nice thing because it pulls more diverse perspectives into the conversation. Maybe further down the line, as this field kind of develops more, we'll find a more precise definition to be useful. But I like to kind of think about fields and their arc and the trajectory, and I think now is a time where we want to be more inclusive with our parameters than not. But yeah, I guess those are my thoughts. Yeah, after being thrown in the deep end of it. But yeah, happy to um So yeah, to have the conversation with all of you. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you. And I think it's Nella. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, but you made the crucial mistake of speaking up. So we know your mic works. If you want to maybe share also something that might give you hope on the environmental peace building.
Yeah, I thought I actually did this already, but I can add to this.
That'd be awesome.
Um, yeah, definitely the drive of young people and the diversity of approaches they bring to it. And during the discussion, I also thought of Greta Thunberg and
Mhm.
her efforts and how she links climate and conflict, um, not just in the context of what's going on in Palestine, but generally, because I think this is really important. And that also brings me to youth in Africa and Asia, which have way younger populations than we do. Um, and maybe that's also one of the reasons why they are the front runners for the YPS agenda. Um, yeah. Also the fact that they are way more impacted so far by climate change than we are. And I think we in Europe and in the Western world in general can really learn a lot from them in the coming years.
Thank you. That's really great. I think before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to this word cloud that we shared at the beginning. So, Henry, um, we started off this conversation and we asked everyone what one word came to mind when they thought about environmental peace building. Um, and these are the words that we came up with: preservation, livelihood, cooperation, complicated, governance, climate, climate justice, opportunity, connection, and participation. And then in this conversation, we've talked a lot about the importance of inclusiveness in environmental peace building and the fact that there already are a lot of um, really thoughtful and innovative approaches to environmental peace building, especially at the local level. And as this field develops, it's important to stay attuned to what's already happening and ensure that we're learning from best practices and seeking out that local knowledge. We also talked about environmental peace building at the kind of international and multilateral level and how we can elevate um, considerations and build synergies across multilateral regimes that are maybe thinking about elements of environmental peace building in silos. Um, so I wanted to invite everyone, if there are any new words that come to mind when you think about environmental peace building after this conversation, to add it to the word cloud. Participation, diversity, youth, proactive. These are all really great. Indigenous knowledge, multimodal, restoration. Well, thank you all for a really provocative and interesting conversation. I feel like I personally learned a lot and it was really nice to hear from all of your perspectives. I feel like um, I'm coming away with this with ideas of how to move forward. I don't know, Robin, if you wanted to come in before we give some closing remarks.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and I'm very happy that we got to discuss about YPS National Action Plan. I did not really expect that, but it's great that it came up naturally. But actually, as we said, we only have about an hour or so to talk about a topic that is huge in itself. So there's a lot of aspects that we did not cover, such as we didn't talk about also gendered aspects of environmental peace building, for example. And that just means we're going to have to gather again to keep up the conversation. And actually, in the coming days, there will be more events on all those topics. So I really encourage you to check the EnPAx website also to see the agenda of all the conversations that will be held in the coming days. There are some very broad ones, there are some very niche ones, but all of them are super interesting. So I encourage you to go and maybe bring up the youth perspective in all those conversations.
Thank you all for your participation today. I know we um, threw a lot at you guys with these questions, and you were also thoughtful. And I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Cheers. Thank you,
you.
Sophia.
Thank you guys. Let's keep in touch. I have some ideas.
Please, please reach out.
I will. We're already connected on LinkedIn, so it will be easy.
Perfect.
Good. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And hopefully I'll find time to connect with some of you if you're attending in person as well later this month. But yeah, thanks for organizing this and looking forward to, yeah, seeing, yes, hopefully some of you next week. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.